Hi, Dr. Mark here. Today we're going to work on building something. In particular, we're going to work on building a Waveshare GamePi43 portable handheld RetroPie gaming system. This is the first time that I've ever done anything with RetroPie, so this is sort of a learning process for me, and I thought I'd put a couple helpful hints, things that help me get it up and running in the video. So let's take a look at what's in the box. All right, let's talk about putting this beast together. First of all, let's look at the parts. In the box you have the motherboard / main screen that has all the buttons and the screen on it. This will be basically the heart of the system. Then you have a series of sides and top and bottom. Note that there are two left sides depending on whether you have a Raspberry Pi 3 or Raspberry Pi 4. You want to pick the one that corresponds to your Raspberry Pi. Then we're also provided with a variety of side screws. Actually not a variety, they're all exactly the same, but we need 10 of them. And then we need 2 screws and nuts for the extender that's going to extend the reach of the SD card. We have an HDMI connection, and again there's 2 of these, one for a Raspberry Pi 4, one for a Raspberry Pi 3. So pick the one that matches the port HDMI out that you have on your Raspberry Pi. We have the SD extender, and basically this is just a nice little bit of kit that allows you to access the SD card from the outside of the case rather than having to tear the whole thing apart to get access to it. We also have a charger, which needs to be, you need to click the US outlet prongs onto it to make it work. We have some extra buttons in case one of the buttons goes bad in your system, an extra bag of screws, and a standoff and a little screwdriver, so you don't even need to have any tools to put this together. And that's what we have in the box. Then the pieces that you have to buy on your own, you have to buy some 18650 batteries. I ordered those online as well. You have to have a thumb drive. I chose to use just a brand new thumb drive that I'll keep dedicated to the Raspberry Pi or the RetroPie system for the ongoing future. Of course, you have to have your Raspberry Pi. I have a Raspberry Pi 4B, and then you have to have an SD card to hold the operating system. So let's look at putting it together. It's actually pretty easy. Start with the extender. And this clips in so that the connectors on the extender face the top of the Raspberry Pi. Slide it into the slot where you would normally put your SD card, and then fasten it in place with the 2 extender screws and their nuts. Then we can go ahead and place the Raspberry Pi itself onto the motherboard by putting the big multi-pin connector into the socket. Like that. Make sure that's firmly pressed in, make sure that all the pins are in the right places. And then we can connect the HDMI from the Raspberry Pi to the motherboard with the HDMI connector. And that will slip on something like this. This was the one part that was fiddly with my assembly. The first time I put it together, I didn't have that seated properly, and so when I turned on the system, I didn't see anything on the screen at all. Once you've got that on, then we're going to put the batteries in. Note that their polarity is marked plus and minus, and the batteries go in the same direction, unlike batteries in many commercial systems where you put in your AA's, facing each direction. So look at your batteries themselves really closely. Make sure that the plus goes to the plus and not to the minus. And those go in there. And those take quite a bit of pushing to get into place, and you may see some LEDs light up the first time you put one of the batteries in. Now from there we can put on the sides. So I put on my top and my bottom, and there's really nothing holding those in place, so you sort of have to hold your mouth right and then put a side on. It fits into the tabs, and then you can put some screws in to hold it in place like that. Likewise for the right side, put it in place with the tabs first and then secure with the screws, and then finally put the back on and secure it with screws as well. From there, you want to insert your SD card into the extender on the right-hand side of the case, and you're ready to go. Everything else then is software installation, and so we'll talk about that next. Alright, so your first starting place is to download and flash the RetroPie system. I did that from the RetroPie website itself. I went to the download location, found the Raspberry Pi 4 image, downloaded that, and then used Etcher to flash it onto my SD card. That's all pretty straightforward. What did not work is to try to use the pre-built RetroPie 4B version from the GamePi43 wiki. When I clicked on that, I end up having a file error. Oh no, never mind. It's here today. You might try that then and see how that works. I did the etched version, and then so what I had to do is to get the drivers for the GamePi43 system manually. And so I'll just walk you through how to do that in case that file access bit doesn't work again. So I copied the link for that download of the drivers, and then I'm SSH'd into my system here. And if I look at the directory, we'll see that there's really nothing there, just the RetroPie pieces. But I can get the driver package using this curl command, which is a standard Linux command, or curl command, or wget probably is better. Wget, and then that URL from the wiki that will connect to the Waveshare site, download that driver. So we'll let that complete. Once the driver is complete, we can extract it. Right now it's a tarball here that's been zipped. So if I do tar xvzf extract verbal zipped file, and give it the file name that we downloaded, that will extract that all into the GamePi43 directory. So cd into that, take a look at what we have here, and it's really not exactly obvious what we're supposed to do, but we're supposed to execute this GamePi43 function. So we'll give a sudo /GamePi43, and that will writes into the all the drivers, and then it restarts, so my SSH connection has been dumped. But at that point, we should have all of our drivers up to date, and when you turn on the system with the SD card in place, you'll actually get to see a RetroPie screen, and everything will be hunky-dory. All right, once you've got that up and going, you want to power on your RetroPie system and insert your thumb drive into one of the SD ports, or the USB ports rather. And what that will do is construct a file system with a folder named RetroPie on the thumb drive. Give that a couple minutes. There's really no status indicator unless your thumb drive has a light on it. But once you've given it a few minutes, yank it out, put it into your PC, and then you can look at the contents of that directory. So right now I've got this RetroPie folder, and when you double click in that and look in the ROMs folder, it'll have a bunch of subdirectories, which are subdirectories for all the different consoles or systems that it can simulate. And so then go out to the non-sketchy perfectly legal sites that you can to find ROMs, and for each ROM you copy it into the correct system. So for instance, for the Game Boy I've got Gauntlet 2 and Tetris Plus. Now some of those are a little bit more interesting than others. Some of them you put the zip file directly, like these Game Boy games. Others, I think with like the N64 for instance, yeah, the N64, when you download the ROM package, it'll come in a 7-zip or a zip file. You're going to need to extract the particular image that you want, which ends with a Z64. You can find all of that sort of information on the RetroPie website. If you dig into the consoles that you're looking at, it'll provide what the extensions are that you need to have in your folders. Once you've got that on, then you want to go ahead and take the thumb drive out of your PC, put it back into your RetroPie system, and wait a while. And again, how long you wait depends on how many games you've got set up on that thumb drive. It could be quite a while. I usually wait about 10 minutes. And then yank the USB drive out and restart the emulation station on your RetroPie, and it should have all your games in place. So there we go. It's a lot of fun. Give it a try.